Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Cyber Safety Guy podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing what I think is probably one of the biggest issues coming down the pipeline for modern parenting and youth development, and that's the rapid rise and proliferation of artificial intelligence, or AI, as most people will know it. I think for today's children and teenagers, AI is not just a future concept, it's pretty much already profoundly shaping their realities. And research has shown that children aged 8 to 17, they typically spend between 2 and 5 hours online daily. I reckon it's probably more than that. But nearly every child over 12 has a mobile phone now, and they're using platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and the rest of the social media platforms that are out there. And for them, as I've said before, I think the online and the offline worlds are just one and the same. There's no differentiation between the two. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore three critical areas, and that's how children are using generative AI or Gen AI, and the impact it has on their critical thinking, the acute safety threats that are posed by this technology, and also some of the practical solutions that we're going to have to embrace to protect this generation. And a lot of them I've gone over before, but it's never a bad thing to reinforce them. So, AI, the use of, and the critical thinking challenge. And firstly, what is generative AI? Generative AI is a form of artificial intelligence that basically produces new content such as text, images, films, that sort of thing. And it aids people to do those creative activities. And I think most of you already know children, they're the first adopters of any emerging technology. And they're so switched on these days and technically literate that it's quite easy for them to adopt them. So while this offers them opportunities for creativity, there's also serious concerns around how much they rely on generated content and how it affects their intellectual development and particularly their critical thinking abilities. Digital competence is defined by the European Commission as requiring the confident, critical and responsible use of digital technologies. But AI algorithms, they often determine the content which young users see, and it potentially limits their exposure to more diverse perspectives, or it reinforces those harmful biases that are out there. And this sort of algorithmic profiling, it undermines a child's right to access reliable information and use that freedom of thought. So for this reason, there's many sort of advocates out there who are arguing that the algorithm based on personal profiling should be disabled by default for young users. And that's something that I would wholeheartedly agree with and hope they push that through. Gen AI, it accelerates the spread of misinformation, which many people will have seen. The mere fact that a certain world leader can create AI videos of himself flying jets over protesters and depositing brown mess on top of them will show you that it's pretty simple. If he can use Gen AI, then pretty much anyone can to push their own agendas. It's for that reason sort of that children, we really need to be educating them to assess the quality but also the reliability of online sources and to verify those facts, to work against the deluge of basically easily manipulated content that's out there trying to sway people's opinions. But this risk also extends directly to mental health through the use of AI chatbots. And chatbots are designed to mimic human conversation and emotion, and they present themselves as a friend or companion. And this makes young people especially vulnerable to them because clinicians have basically warned of something called AI psychosis, which I'd never heard of until I started researching for this podcast. But basically that means it's a state where a user loses touch with reality. And it's after the intense use of a chatbot. So they're driven by flattery and the agreement that's often built into large language models. And the risks are pretty immediate because there was a 12-year-old girl who contacted Childline, And she was worried about her mental health after a chatbot suggested that she might have anxiety or depression. So we're at the point now where chatbots are pretending to be doctors, and that's not a good place to be at. And it's certainly not a good place to be where children are believing chatbots and what they tell them. So we're going to talk about the online safety crisis and how generative AI feeds into that. Because you know that I am very passionate about online child safety. And I think that the biggest threat that AI poses is to online child safety. And I specifically think that's through the weaponization of these generative capabilities. In particular, you've got AI generated child sexual abuse material out there. Because Gen AI is being used now to create a new type of CSAM. And it's often just by placing a child's face onto existing abuse material, they're called deepfakes, or nudifying real images. They take an image of a child from their social media profile or wherever else it's out there, and they use AI to take the clothes off that child effectively and create an image of it. And the worrying thing about this is that they're media files that are created using that person's face, body, or their voice. And the sophisticated nature of these AI imagery now, they're actually being considered indistinguishable from other forms of photographic abuse. You can imagine the damage that would cause to a child or to their family or friends. You've got blackmail and exploitation, where the images are then used to blackmail and coerce victims into further horrific abuses or more degraded acts. And there's been, tragic examples that I've commented on in the past in other blog posts where we've actually seen, like the case of the 14-year-old boy who was blackmailed for £50 after a friend's face was used on an AI body and threatened to be posted online. Grooming is one that I've talked about considerably in the past, and it's the fact that traditional notion of stranger danger, is something that has evolved over the years. And basically, as the internet and social media platforms are that new hunting ground for sexual predators, perpetrators are using AI tools to disguise their identity, and that's where they can pretend to be Jimmy from 3 towns over, who's 15 and the same age as your child, has all the same interests as them, has the same hobbies, plays the same games as them, and they spend that 6-month period just grooming that child to be their best friend. And the first you know about it is the kid's not there in the morning. They've gone to visit their friend Jimmy down the road and never seen again. And it's a harsh reality, but it's one that I think people need to understand because it does happen. I think online gaming, as I said there, that's definitely one of those areas where there's a high tick up rate on predators setting themselves in those environments to hunt for children and to groom them in an environment where kids feel safe. Governments and international bodies are attempting to address, these issues, and the Online Safety Act in the UK is one of the bits of legislation that have been created, and it's one of those ones that, as always, has its champions and its detractors for various reasons. But the UK is trying to do things, and they've become the first country in the world to create a specific AI sexual abuse offence, and that makes it illegal to possess, create, or distribute AI tools designed to generate CSAM. And it was under the OSA that platforms, basically like social media platforms, they've got to use highly effective age assurance, facial recognition, estimation software, or credit card checks before to prevent children basically being able to access pornography or content which promotes self-harm or suicide. And actually, it's relevant to this. On Monday just gone, a married father of 2 became the first person in the UK to be jailed for 20 years under that specific offence. And I, for one, I'm hoping to see many more of these predators getting such substantial custodial offences, because that is certainly one of the tools that will help to reduce the horrific nature of the offences that these people commit. And I use people quite loosely, as always, the term people. So the Act, as I say, has faced criticism from privacy campaigners, many of whom I get messages from when I say that I'm on the side of more of these type of controls to enable law enforcement to be able to track down these individuals. But I do understand that there is fear and concern about turning into the next North Korea or Russia. But as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot more positive than negative in at least trying to crack down on these people. And I think that's where we need to be focusing efforts. But on the same point there, the fact is that this heavy encryption is something that the NSPCC has basically pointed out, that end-to-end encrypted private messaging services, they pose an unacceptable and major risk to children's safety, because they're shielding from the platform the activity that we want to try and prevent, and it makes that a much safer playground for sexual predators. On the enforcement side, the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute, bit of a mouthful, but their Ministry of Interior in the UAE have actually launched something called the AI for Safer Children Initiative, and they have a global hub now, basically, which provides investigators access to information on more than 80 cutting-edge AI tools to help combat child sexual exploitation. And this technology, it's dramatically expedited investigations. There was one investigator who basically reported that his investigation went from what would have been 1 to 2 weeks, and that was cut down to just 1 day by adopting a tool that was in the global hub. So this also demonstrates that the role of AI is crucial in fighting the very crimes that we're talking about it enabling. And that's where I've said before that all tools for good, or technological advances for good, will be subverted by evil. But these are just some of the examples of the good side of it. So resilience, literacy, and communication. These are a lot of these bits I'm about to speak about are bits that I've told you all before, and I will start with my favourite one. Because given the rapid increase in AI risks, the most powerful defences that we have remain those foundational ones of technology, but pair that technology with parental guidance and a robust digital literacy. And that's why my favourite go-to, as always, that I bang on about in every blog post and every podcast I've done, is you have to have the importance of communication. You need that regular, open conversation with children, and it's vital to ensuring that they're safe and have positive experiences online. Teenagers aged 14 to 17, they're more prone to risk-taking. Overly strict controls can backfire because it'll just lead to them hiding their activities, right? And believe me when I say that they know how to do that, especially where most parents are concerned. So if they trust you, if they know that they can come to you and you won't be judgmental, you won't punish them immediately, then they're much more likely to bring issues to you. And dare I say it, when things go wrong for them online, you want them to be able to do that. You want them to be able to approach you so that you can work with them and solve that issue before it goes down a very dark road and they think that they're in a corner and can't do anything. You should always strive to be curious with them, so not critical, not judgmental, and just approach any discussion with them with a very open mind. You'd be surprised how much you can learn from your children in this day and age when it comes to technology and what's going on in the online world. Digital literacy, very much non-negotiable in this day and age. I think it encompasses skills that are needed to thrive in this digital world. And that includes, problem solving. It includes media literacy and, very importantly, critical thinking. And I think education is going to be the key to recognizing scams, disinformation, and also manipulative tactics that are driven by those algorithms. Some essential online safety rules. So you've got that stranger danger, and that children must never talk to strangers online or offline indeed, or give out their personal information, their address, their school name. Predators view the internet as their hunting ground, as I've said on many occasions. And often they're building those relationships over long periods of time. The good thing about that is that if they're building that over a longer period of time, then if you're having the right conversations with your kid, then that's more time for them to bring concerns to you before the predator gets what they want, which is that meeting in person. The permanent digital footprint, as I've gone over in the past in a couple of blog posts, you've got to remind them that everything they upload, email or message, stays online forever. And that they should only post what they wouldn't mind a future employer or media representative from seeing. No inappropriate sharing, very important. Tell them, not to send inappropriate pictures or videos. If it's a picture they wouldn't show to you or their granny, then they shouldn't be sending it online to someone. Because once they click submit, gone. Control over that is gone, and likely will be used to blackmail them to create far more depraved content. And again, we're going down that very dark alley that ends with not good consequences. And seek help immediately. If anyone asks them to keep a secret, same as the old stranger danger. If an adult tells them to keep a secret from their parents, probably not good, and they should probably bring that to you straight away. Or if they encounter something upsetting or wrong, then come and tell the trusted adult immediately. That might not be you as a parent. It might be a teacher. It might be an older friend or what have you. But at least they know they can go to someone with those concerns. And tools for protection. Communication is paramount. It's my biggest go-to every time. But there are technical solutions that can help, and it helps to create a safer online environment for them. Parental controls. Lots of blog posts on my blog about those. If there's one that's not covered, let me know. I will cover one. But there are loads of good resources out there about how to set up good practical tools with regards to parental controls, which can be set up very easily these days. And even your ISP probably has some really good tools that you can set up as part of your home setup. Virtual private networks is one that I've talked about. It's a simple, affordable tool, and it creates that encrypted tunnel between the device and your data, and it helps protect a child's privacy. It secures the data on a public Wi-Fi, and it hides their location. So these are all positives, but remember that a VPN is also one that can be used to circumnavigate certain controls. So a smart kid is going to know how to get around some of these tools, which is why I always say that they're not 100% foolproof, because you need to have that communication piece as well, so that they understand why these tools are in place and why not to try and get around them. So yeah, I think in conclusion, digital world, it's given teens and kids these unprecedented opportunities, and it's also a double-edged sword, because it's evolving and there's severe risks that are associated with it, and that basically stems from Gen AI's potential for exploitation and manipulation. It's basically designed to do those things. So as technology developers and policymakers work to create systems that are ethical and safe, you as parents and teachers, you've got to focus on equipping young people with resilience and critical thinking skills. The digital competence is going to be necessary for them to be able to navigate a very complex world and to do so confidently. So it's vital that you are the champion of that ethical approach to AI and celebrate its potential, whilst also scrutinizing its risks and communicating those risks to your children. And I think that's sort of the takeaway from this, is that, AI and Gen AI, they're not going anywhere. If anything, they're going to become bigger parts of everyone's life. And the more that we understand that it should be a tool to assist rather than a tool to put our full belief and faith in, the better we'll be. I use AI daily in my work life now, and I wouldn't be silly enough to just take what it tells me and take it as gospel, because it's like anything. It will make its own decisions on certain things, or give its own opinion on things that may not necessarily be right. So we should always be fact checking everything we do with AI, but it still makes me more productive. I'm able to do things quicker because I take that time to look at the data it provides me and make sure it's correct. But I haven't had to go off and find all that data through various different Google foo searches. So yeah, hopefully this has been a useful presentation. There is a blog post to go with it, and if you want to read rather than listen to my dulcet tones. But I will hopefully catch you on the next one. As always, please do reach out if you've got any comments or suggestions, and please do share, because I don't use social media myself, so I rely on you all to spread that message out there. But yeah, take care of yourselves and see you on the next one.